Who are you? What's your role? And who do you work for?
Hello, so I'm Stefan Esteves, working for Splunk. I'm basically an observability market advisor for EMEA. As you can hear, I'm French, but I'm here to represent EMEA in globally speaking.
What are 3 Kubernetes emerging tools that you are keeping an eye on?
I mean, the two usual suspects, to be honest. The first thing is about eBPF, right? Because it's always a nightmare to understand the network when you work with the cloud provider. So we have big hopes about eBPF and understanding, the network thing. And the second one, not directly related, but is OpenTelemetry. I mean, that's maybe one of the key words that I've heard most people talking about in this edition.
One of our guests, Matt, shared that most teams store logs and metrics in Kubernetes without considering the implications of the data they collect. Consequently, they end up paying a hefty price for data that is not actually used. What's your advice on ingesting, storing, and querying metrics in Kubernetes?
I will not mention about the cost because it depends on the solutions and so on, but I want to mention something about the metrics when we talk about Kubernetes. And when you try to make observable Kubernetes environment, one of the key issues you will have is about the speed on how you collect data, right? And what most of the vendors have seen are basically having the same approach, which is basically try to get the data as fast as you can when you're talking about metrics. But the problem is then this is stored in a time series database, and then there's a batch, right? So imagine that from the moment you want to see that there is an incident and the moment that you want to apply some auto remediation, there's a batch in the middle. So if you collect the data, let's say metrics in a few seconds, and then you have to wait 1 minute for the batch, that doesn't make sense in the cloud native world, I would say. So this is something that most of the people don't talk about, right? They just mentioned the first part, which is, hey, I collect the data super fast. But most interesting, how fast you can alert and report on it. So there are new approaches like streaming and things like that, and that's where what we believe will be the future for collecting metrics for Kubernetes environments.
When it comes to observability tooling, a lot of people can get overwhelmed because there's just so much out there. What's the advice that you find yourself often giving folks when they're trying to troubleshoot this vast ecosystem?
In fact, before even starting talking about observability, I will start talking about OpenTelemetry. The first thing is you need to get the data. And then you will find which tools do you need to use this data. I mean, usually an observability platform has always the same tools. Real user monitoring, synthetic monitoring, distributed tracing, and some kind of infrastructure monitoring with the metrics, and then logs, right? That's a classic, the 3 pillars of observability: logs, metric, traces, and I know that soon profiling will be added. But my advice is, before anything else, just invest in OpenTelemetry. Make sure that you can collect properly the data, put that on your pipelines so you don't have to work too much to get the telemetry done. And then you have this freedom to select the right kind of tools you want in the backend to send the data to. And what I like about OpenTelemetry is first, you're not locked in with a vendor. So if you make a mistake, you can switch more easily, and instrumentation is already done. If you're a security guy, you can know exactly what you're sending to who, right? You can do a lot of pre-processing in there and so on. So my first advice is just start with the data, then you will find the right tool on the back end. But everybody does the same thing. And back to my previous comment, right? Don't trust the vendors, just test the technology, because very often most people do the same thing, they just don't deliver it the same way. To my point about the batch approach and so on for metrics as an example, or sampling data, which it's an old way of collecting traces, right? Nowadays, when we're talking about AI and so on, you need to find early signals, you need the data, stop sampling, because now we're storing everything on the cloud and it's quite cheap, right? So there's no more reason for sampling traces and things like that, as an example.
Kubernetes is turning 10 years old this year. What should we expect in the next 10 years to come?
There's a lot of work doing in how to simplify the management and the infrastructure. There's a lot of buzzwords about LLMs and stuff like that for SREs and so on. I don't believe that will really happen soon. I mean, it's still something that requires human intelligence in there, but still there is in 10 years, we will work a lot on simplifying the management of that, but in 10 years we'll move to something else, to be honest. That goes well too fast. But I don't know, that's the future. For the moment, we already have a lot of things to do to make sure that everybody already starts using Kubernetes. So that's a major preoccupation in short term.
What's next for you?
Waiting for, again, all the consolidation and clarification on the observability thing, because just even observability as a word, everybody has different understanding. I'm not usually, I shouldn't say that, but a big fan of analysts, but I think they have at least one great value is this: they make everybody agree on definitions, and that's what we're expecting nowadays. It's just people already agrees on terminology. That will help to simplify the conversations between everybody working around observability.
How can people get in touch with you?
I think LinkedIn will be the easiest way, basically, right?